in the sands of the Sahara Desert, at the dawn of human history, a nomadic tribe gave birth to a child. The innocent child had gray and blue skin, causing its parents to fear it as some kind of terrible demon. Little did they know, in the nearby cities, they were already discussing this child as one of destiny. This was a child who would be known as the Apocalypse.
It's up. Nature. Return. Okay.
And welcome to this episode of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Multiverse. I'm Flonzo.
And I'm Jimmy.
And today we are talking about The Rise of the Apocalypse. At least when it was written, the story of the first mutant. As we know from our last episode, there were some mutants as far back as 1,000,000 BC.
Yeah. But this is I guess what we'd call like the proto-mutant, right?
Yeah. The first mutant of our written history. And
yeah. Both our and their.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, well put.
Sure.
I think there was a time where they actually said that Professor X was the first mutant, but Apocalypse was the first mutant of recorded history.
Yes.
Yeah, he started out actually as an X Factor villain. Did you ever read any of those early X Factor comics?
Yeah. I mean, I think much later on, like not as they were coming out by any means, but familiar. I think that's interesting. I didn't know that he came around as like an X Factor character.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was actually, so the first 5 issues of X Factor were being written by Bob Layton. And he was kind of setting up this group called the Alliance of Evil. They were kidnapping mutants. It was kind of mysterious who their leader was. And he actually had intended them to be led by a daredevil villain called the Owl, who's super obscure. I only vaguely know him. His alter ego is in the first season of the Daredevil Netflix show.
Oh,
he was like the money guy for the Kingpin in that.
Like, give a hoot about crime. Sorry, that was dumb.
Give a hoot, pollute the streets with drugs and corruption. But yeah, so he just had this like, no one remembered villain as the Owl being this big threat. And Louise Simonson, who had been a big editor on the X-Men, is like, no, we've got to come up with something cooler that we're building up to than the Owl.
Yeah.
So she took over on like the last panel of that 5th issue and replaced it with Apocalypse. And then from there developed a really interesting storyline, I think. Like,
yeah.
The original X Factor concept was that they were disguising themselves. X Factor was a team of mutant hunters who was taking out ads so that they could secretly also work as a terrorist group who was really trying to recruit like mutants for like an Xavier cause, which Louise Simonson did some really good things with that run, kind of turned it into that was all just designed to make things worse for mutants, which it would if you're actually airing anti-mutant ads.
Sure.
And disguising yourself as a terrorist group, like.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so she did a lot of really good things with that series using this villain of Apocalypse that she created. And what we're getting into is the Rise of Apocalypse series, which came a ways later to kind of explain that character's origin. Just before I'm going to have you jump into this, but I do want to make one slight correction. I'd kind of implied at the end of the last episode that it was during this Rise of Apocalypse time that Apocalypse had come across celestial technology. That didn't happen until 12th century. In all fairness, he did describe that celestial technology as a sphinx. And as you will see, a time-traveling sphinx with futuristic technology will play a role in our story.
Very much so. So real quick, Flonzo, when did this series of issues come out?
It was definitely a very 90s series.
Real quick, let me pull up the date for us. So this was October 96. Okay, so we're like firmly mid-90s. So I think that's good for context because I think as we're talking about this, we're going to be not only talking about both the writing, but the artwork in here. So I think that's very relevant. So the first issue of this is called I mean, so it's the Rise of Apocalypse with the subheading, The Origin of Marvel's Most Fearsome Villain. So quick question for you, Flonzo. Up to this point, what made Apocalypse the most fearsome villain?
I mean, I guess by this point he had a big multi-crossover, when he really brought his plan to fruition, when he had his 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. He had crossed over into multiple series, which not many villains had done at that time.
Okay, so he's a big deal.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, certainly for the X-Men at this time, I think he was a really big deal.
Okay. So, opens up with the Eye of Osiris. I assume that's the Eye of Osiris, right?
Yeah,
That's what
like
we're looking at.
Eye of Ra.
Eye of Ra. Okay. It opens up with a place called Akaba and a settlement on the edge of Amentet. These are places that are not real. They're very real to the Marvel Universe, but long forgotten to us. There's a small village of people. They look somewhat peaceful. They're sitting around smoking hookah around a fire. There's a dog having a nice time, and all of a sudden they see a sandstorm quickly approaching. The sandstorm likely is a bad omen for these folks because there is a tribe of people called the Sandstormers. This appears to be a group of pretty bad dudes led by an individual called Ball.
Yeah.
Ball is a beefy looking guy with truly like a ginormous looking cleaver and a do-rag covered in spikes.
And that's one heck of a name he's got there too.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that name Ball before?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually a like old word that's another word for Lord, so it kind of pops up in relation to a lot of different like deities during this time period.
Most definitely.
A lot of people, like if you hear it, a lot of people like associate it with like a Satan Lucifer kind of figure today.
Yep.
Because that was the name of the god of the Canaanites, who, if you read Old Testament, the...
Or played Diablo. That's, I guess, where I would know it from.
So for all you Bible and Diablo fans out there, you may have heard of Baal before.
Right.
But yeah, it just meant Lord. Also kind of associated with a god called Marduk a lot, who's sort of a proto-Zeus.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
Anyway, just... want to give that little bit of background of that edgy name this very edgy comic came up with.
Yeah. So the Sandstormers come through and they effectively like just go through and chop this tribe up. They find themselves a child. Now, Flonzo, help me understand, was this child already birthed to this tribe?
Well, it had been abandoned by this tribe,
Okay.
so it seems like the Sandstormers, they're just going through killing... I think they even mentioned that this is like this 3rd tribe they've killed, trying to find this child.
Okay, and he's hidden within the stones of this like structure.
Yeah, a little ways away from the nomadic tribe that was just massacred.
Okay, so Ball picks him up, quickly finds this like attunement to him and says basically like, I'm going to mentor and father this child.
And seems very eager to find this child before they mention a pharaoh named Rama Tut.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to talk a whole lot about Rama Tut.
Oh yeah, listeners can look forward, or viewers can look forward to a good 2 episodes of Rama Tut coming up.
Yeah, he's ridiculous and wonderful in all the best ways. There is some disagreement about what to do with this child. Ball decides that he does not want to deal with nor navigate this disagreement, so he kills some folks in this tribe.
Yeah, they want to kill the child they just found, so Ball thinks a good solution is to try and kill them. And as we'll get to, killing each other seems to be a big deal in this tribe.
Yeah. Ball very much, I think, sees that this child there's something to them. And so rather than having some type of conversation or diplomacy, he's like, I'll kill you all. This is my style. I got the spikes on my do-rag. You guys are going to die. And so that's what happens. They give the, descriptive slick, and everyone dies. He drives off with his horse, as you do with a horse. Cut to what looks like some type of temple, and we are introduced to 2 of Rama Tut's advisors. We have Ozymandias and Logos. And what's going on in this scene, Flonzo?
They're at this temple in the City of Kings, which I'm guessing might be kind of an early Memphis, which was kind of the original capital of Egypt. We have Ozymandias, who's the general, which One thing that struck me about this is, kind of harping on some of these name choices here. They both have Greek names. Ozzy
Yes, thank you.
Ozymandias is a Greek name for the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II. Logos is a word that means like thought,
Knowledge.
logic.
Logic. Yeah.
Ozymandias is the general. Logos is the grand visor, kind of the advisor to the pharaoh, and you see them sort of bumping heads in a way that's kind of, I didn't realize how much of a trope it was until I started thinking about this. The idea that you have the general guy and the idea guy at odds with each other.
Mm-hmm. And then we see Rama Tut. And what I want to highlight in these frames is just how wild the artwork is. And Flonzo, you had mentioned earlier when we were chatting about this morning, is it's very similar to like Aeon Flux, if folks remember that.
Yeah, which I feel like Aeon Flux works in ways that this doesn't, and I don't know if it's that motion added a lot to that, or just that the sort of style of this doesn't reflect the material well, but it doesn't work for me either.
Yeah, like it looks like everyone's Jafar.
Yeah.
Is what it looks like. And I mean, in this scene in particular, like it shows Rama Tut sitting in his throne, very Spawn-like, and he's got this cod piece that like wraps into itself. It looks like bad AI art in 2025. Anyway, they're talking about Baal, the young Outlander. So this is, at this point, 20 years later.
Yeah, 17 to be exact.
17 years later. And so obviously the baby's in Sabanur, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're talking about this adult child at this point, right?
Who Rama Tut has been looking for. And actually, I do want to bring one thing up real quick. You kind of, when we talked about this last week, you kind of mentioned you weren't super familiar with Rama Tut.
Right.
So you don't have any idea of any other names he might have?
I mean, as of last week, no.
So Rama Tut, and I just know that, if you guys want to shout out in the comments and complain that we haven't gotten to this yet, Rama Tut is a young Kang the Conqueror.
Yep. Of course he is.
Yeah. That was a very 70s thing they did is, all our time-traveling villains are the same person at different periods of their life. They actually came out, the two characters, Rama Tut came out I think it was exactly a year to a day before Kang did. But yeah.
Interesting.
Retcons galore. So I wanted to get that out so that for everyone who's been yelling at their screen, why haven't you said this? Yes, this is Rama Tut, the young Kang the Conqueror, in his first time travel expedition.
And what a fun one it is. He's just the nexus of all things. Okay, cut to a young Sabanur going through basically a manhood trial is what it feels like.
Yeah.
Where he, is very rejected by his tribe, and he's having to show his worth by fighting off 3 dudes at once. So what's going on in this scene, Flonzo?
So for this coming of age thing, he has to defeat 3 armed men while unarmed.
Yep.
How does anyone reach adulthood in this tribe? Now, he's a mutant. We know he's very powerful because, for those of you who are familiar with the character, how does anyone survive adulthood if everyone has to fight 3 armed men who have completed this trial while they are unarmed?
Well, how does the tribe sustain any numbers?
Yeah, exactly.
Is the better question. Because he full-on kills all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And you and I were talking, and I love the conversation, but he just keeps referencing survival of the fittest, which I think is so hilarious. Because it speaks to, the concept of, passing on genetics, which, I don't know.
I think it is possible to have this idea of kind of survival of the fittest, even if you don't have, any knowledge of genetics. Because if you look at it, everything wants to survive, and the fit do tend to be what survive, whatever you want to consider fitness. So you could see how, a culture could have this attitude of survival of the fittest without any knowledge of genetics or anything like that. I feel like there's a lot of sort of headcanons we throw out there of how to, justify some kind of bad writing. I don't feel like it's that hard to justify this. What I do feel like you have to try to justify is how anyone survives when it's taken to this extreme.
You're absolutely right, Flonzo. So what we have here is in Sabanur, he's got his face covered, and he's in the middle of this rite of passage. As these individuals are attacking him, they're kind of describing like the grotesque nature of him, and the tribesmen are screaming first blood. You know, he takes a handful of sand, throws it in their face, and you have kind of these like action scenes between them where he's dodging and attacking to kind of create a sense of danger, but also defense, showing his physical prowess. Simultaneously, there's a cuts to a scene with Ozymandias, Logos, and Rama Tut, where Rama Tut's sitting there kind of musing to himself, "This cannot be allowed, Vizier. If we have at long last found this child of destiny, he who survives, Baal, must not be permitted to shape his future."
And he does seem to be shaping his future in this. We see that he does end up, defeating those three guys, becoming a man within the context of this tribe. And next seems a little weird. Ball's taking him upwards and somehow ends up underneath this structure, but they're like climbing upward from where the tribe is to try and get underneath this temple, but he's taking him to some kind of a weird place that's tied to Rama Tut. He mentions he knows what fault lines are, and it's sort of established that Ball has adopted Sabanur.
Well, and he's going to show him some type of prophecy.
Yeah.
Right? Can you help me understand? Because as I was reading this, I'm like, what am I even looking at?
Yeah. they start out supposedly with the rest of the tribe, are climbing upwards, but end up underneath where the tribe is.
Yes.
So, like, my theory is, like, maybe they walked, like, the tribe was on some kind of plateau, they went down and up for some reason. Anyway, beyond that, Ball has seen something in the past, and maybe this is something like you were getting to that allowed him to know about Darwinian stuff. I think the writer intended for this to relate to the plot more later on, and we'll kind of see what that is. But basically, he found something that is related to Rama Tut that has some of his futuristic technologies, because Rama Tut has come from the future. Like I said, he's... We'll get a little more into it next episode, but he's from the year 3000 AD and traveled back in time.
A perfect utopia where he was just bored.
Exactly.
He wanted some fun.
What's more fun than becoming a god emperor of ancient Egypt? And, this is really a time where you kind of can get away from this. This is sort of right where we're starting to have some written history, but it's kind of sketchy. But yeah, so he's trying to take him to this place to see this vision. Meanwhile, Ozymandias, who is this general who's supposed to capture Sabanur in yet less than a month, attacks.
Yeah. So he ambushes the Dust Stormers, and as he's in there, Ball is down in these catacombs showing Sabanur kind of this prophecy. As Flonzo had mentioned, they find this like nebulous technology.
Yeah, it's like something that like some sort of like a historical record-keeping device that Rama Tut had that he brought back with him.
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and
it's so bizarre. It looks like
set up like it's going to play a bigger role in the series than it does, but this is the last we see of it. Maybe
is it the thing at the end that they used to kill Ozymandias? We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. I don't think so.
Anyway, as they're down there, there's this clash going on between the Dust Stormers and Ozymandias. They're getting ambushed by the Dust Stormers. A cave-in happens, and everyone gets buried simultaneously. We see Nephti. We didn't mention Nephti, so who is she, Flonzo?
So Nephti is Ozymandias' sister. I think
and she plays multiple roles.
She does play multiple roles. So Ozymandias and her father was the old pharaoh who was overthrown by Rama Tut. And now he's kind of cementing his legitimacy by marrying her.
Yep. Yeah, she plays some very interesting parts later on. Excited to talk about her more. So this issue ends with the cave-in happening, a little bit of a cliff I don't want to call it a cliffhanger. It's like a cliff caver.
Yeah, I was about to say a cliff faller.
Cliff faller. We have Insabanur and Ball in the cave, along with half of Ozymandias's army and the Dust Stormers. I mean, they're all, supposedly dead.
Yeah, the next issue
survived.
establishes that, Ozymandias is the only survivor of these two armies clashing here.
Yeah, and then we have Rama Tut talking about a grander scheme, and Sabanur's an evolutionary jumpstart, and that's where this issue ends.
So then we get to issue 2, and as we mentioned, the only survivor of the two armies is Ozymandias. And below, we have a couple people who have dubiously survived.
That is accurate. So let's jump into the Rise of Apocalypse number 2, lovingly titled Destiny's Cruel Hand. So fucking self-serious, this whole series. I love it.
It is very much a comic for that, like, brooding 13-year-old.
Very much so. So this issue opens up, instead of one, eye, we have two eyes this time. We are developing. The story is progressing. So we can see, the aftermath of the cave-in. We can see the bottom of the cave is just littered with bodies. There's also a vulture down there. Decided to fly on down and get its mill. And then we can see the hand of Insabanur. The way the frame looks, it looks like he's saying his own name. And then you see Ball on the other side calling out to him.
So I think this really speaks to the issues of some of the art.
Yeah.
And how I think they might not be corresponding with the writer and the artist. I think these first bunch of panels are Ozymandias, because they're saying only one person survives. Then we see...
Ozymandias is actually back at the Valley of the Kings.
He gets back there, but...
That's not him. He's not down there.
This is really good insight to our actual...
I would wager my X dollars on this, that is Insabanur and Ball, who are both at the bottom there.
They are both at the bottom, but...
And Ozymandias... So, interestingly enough, this is a fun conversation. So, Ozymandias at the end of issue 1 is, on the edge of the cliff. Yeah, he
says the ground below, with the below falling down, symbolizing he's falling down with the men.
No, he's screaming as his army's falling in. He's watching them fall in.
Look at the panel before that. His horse is falling with the men.
He lets go of the reins. And he's on the cliffside.
Then why does it say that only one remains as it shows the hand? It's
only one remains. Ozymandias is at the top.
I will give you. I think your interpretation. This is such a realistic view of us discussing comics outside of this podcast.
It is. Very much so.
Fun fact, we once got in a fist fight over whether or not the Age of Apocalypse was an alternate timeline. Well, if it being an alternate timeline also made it an alternate dimension.
This is true. This happened yesterday. I kid. We were children.
We were in high school.
Oh, you know what? So check this out. This is what happened. Okay, I know exactly what happened, and I'm going to explain this in wonderful podcast detail for people to understand. And I think you might agree with me.
Okay.
Ozymandias did not fall in. Ozymandias grabs the cliff as he's falling in.
Okay.
Because that is his ring. You are correct. But look, he's not in a cave. He is holding onto a cliff.
Go ahead and read that last panel. What is he saying there?
Let the gods come, for I am Ozymandias, and let mankind tremble at his anger. It doesn't say I fell in a cave.
Yeah, but it says I am Ozymandias, the initial.
Yes, and he's holding onto the cliff. That is his ring.
Okay, yeah. But
look,
no, and I agree that it's totally Insabanur and Ball down below.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. He never fell in the cave.
Okay.
So you come to this one, that is his hand stick, that is Insabanur.
Yeah.
Ozymandias never fell in the cave.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Okay, thank you. We avoided a fist fight today, ladies and gentlemen.
We have matured.
In classic Jimmy and Flonzo fashion. We have resolved this. Okay, but the question then becomes, Fonzo, who are these, like, skeleton people at the bottom of this cave?
Well, no, I think that is a statue.
Okay.
That's a statue. It was there in the last issue as well. Why any of this is here, I'm not sure. It's like a monument to the hidden relics of Rama Tut, who appeared like 20 years ago tops.
Okay, I'm gonna get this back on track here. So let's set the scene. You have Ozymandias, who slipped into the mouth of the cave.
Did not fall all the way in.
He did not fall all the way in, but he clawed himself out. Maybe he got two-thirds in the way in. We don't know. The art sucks. You have Ball, who is at the bottom of the cave and looks partially buried. And then you have Insabanur, who is fully buried, possibly dead. And then you have Ball, who is screaming, "Son." And you have him screaming for his name. At this point, Insabanur looks impaled.
Yeah, by like a column or a stalactite, different.
Yeah. So, Flonzo, how is this his mutant ability that allows him to come back from this? Or is this the Rama Tut technology that allows him to, like, spring back from this?
I would say this is the beginning of his mutant powers.
It sure seems that way, right? Like, it sure seems like he's, like, developing some type of, like, proto-mutant abilities at this point. Because Ball mentions that, right? He says something to that, akin to that, right?
Well, I mean, he is talking a lot about how strong he is and, which kind of shows how he cares about him, because in this philosophy of only the strong are worthy, he lets himself care about him because he's strong.
Right. Right.
I think this is, another example of, like, a traumatic incident kind of starting to kick off a mutant ability. We'll see as he gets more trauma, he'll get even more mutant abilities later on.
Okay. So in, classic dad fashion, Ball kind of he wraps him up with, like, a bandage, even though he has a whole column sticking out of him. And they start to try and navigate this underwater catacomb. And you get this really crazy image of Insabanur and this very devilish look on his face. And then you cut to Ozymandias coming back to the City of Kings with, like, full fanfare, like full parade. So what's going on here, Flonzo?
Well, it does mention, like, at first I thought this was like kind of like a Roman triumph or something, but they do describe that it's a festival of the Scarab in the City of Kings.
Okay.
And so, he just happens to come home at the right time for a good homecoming.
And he thinks he's defeated Insabanur. Like, he's like, we got it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? What is Rama Tut thinking?
Well, he does know that Insabanur will someday become Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as he built this time machine himself, so he doesn't have a firm sort of understanding of how time travel works. But one thing that, and I know you've heard me complain about this many times with stories involving time travel, that either you can go back in time and change history, or it's already pre-written, right?
Right.
And everything with, when Rama Tut goes back in time, everything has already happened.
Right.
So the apocalypse that he knew would not have come to be if he hadn't gone back in time.
Right. Right. Okay. So we get these musings of Rama Tut at this point. He's basically saying, like, I want to mentor him into what I need him to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, both him and Ball want to raise this person to control this apocalyptic, dare we say, force.
Right. And then it cuts back to Rama Tut just being a fucking classic douche. He's like, but, this time period does come with its pleasures, and looks at Nefri. Ew. And, she's, his betrothed wife.
Yeah, who Ozymandias wants to marry her just so he can manipulate him, and everyone seems to know this is the case.
Ozymandias wants her to marry him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Ozymandias is her sister.
Yeah, Ozymandias and Nefri are brother and sister.
Yeah. Okay, and then Logos pops back in.
I also do just want to comment that I really do like, for as much as we might complain about the stylized art in this and how it doesn't work, I do really like her outfit in this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, how would you describe it, Flonzo?
What I really like about it is it's kind of like this wrap where the top that covers her top is wings, and then it's got like this scarab like in the center. I don't know. It's got a cool like naturalistic, elegant colors, which we don't really know a lot about this time period, but we do know that a lot of the times we do give the past like these drab colors, and there are these bright, colorful things. So
Yeah, it's stylistic.
yeah, yeah,
It's cool. It kind of looks like wings. Yeah.
yeah. The wings, the beetle. I don't know. I like the way it incorporates these natural symbols into the art of the fabric.
Yeah. And then Logos pops in, and again, he's kind of doing what Logos does best, is warn. He's trying to be honorable North. So we go back to Ball and Insabanur kind of trudging through this underwater catacomb. Underground, sorry, there is water there. It's beneath the desert, as it were. And so at this point, they have not eaten or drank water in several weeks. Insabanur, out of frustration, grabs this rock and just throws it, busts a hole in a wall, and to their surprise, there is the year 3000 level computer technology, which looks like a CRT screen, like a jet engine, and like a really big keyboard. That's when Ball starts to muse on the past, and he's like, yeah, at one point a giant sphinx came from the sky, and inside was a spaceman, and that was Rama Tut. So what's happening here, Flonzo?
So what's happening is Ball's describing how they found Rama Tut, as he went back in time in this Sphinx. Not in a celestial spaceship shaped like a Sphinx, as I made the air of, but a time machine shaped like a Sphinx. And so they find Rama Tut in there, they nurse him back to help, and then he just disappears one day and comes back with an army, and he can't find the Eye of Ages, which I'm guessing is that device they used earlier, which, now that I'm remembering the story a little bit, probably does play a little more of a role than I said did before, but...
Right. This is super interesting to me story-wise, because for an environment, for these tribes, for this like geopolitical climate that is so hostile to everything, for this like Sphinx to fall from the sky, and then this like a blind spaceman to just like not be killed immediately is like truly shocking.
Well, because and I know we're going to get into this a little more in the next episode, but he did have a gun with him, so that...
He, like, blind fires,
yeah.
But, like, low-level radiates people's abilities away from them.
Yeah.
Like...
That gun can do a lot of things. It can also enslave people's minds, so...
Yeah.
I mean, and there's the shock factor, too.
Yeah, it's the plot armor gun. It's what it is.
He is a named character, therefore he survives, unlike all those unnamed people in that pit.
That's right.
Yeah, I will say I do kind of like when Ozymandias does throw that guy off the pyramid. He says that it's so that he can tell the underworld of their accomplishments, which really cements him as a villain.
He's a jerk. Yeah.
And we also see, these slaves building the pyramids, and as some of our viewers, listeners might know, that's a huge misconception about the enslavement of the pyramid builders. This is probably a good millennium before we have any sort of money the way we know of it. But as much as, anyone without money could be paid for labor, what we do know of the builders of the pyramids is they were compensated pretty well.
Yeah. Cut back to Ensabanur and Dad. They're just screaming at each other about each other dying, from what I recall from this scene.
It's a good way.
Ensabanur decides he's going to leave Dad down there, and Pops passes away. He punches his way through the ground.
And he does vow that he'll avenge him by eating a sacred scarab, and he, that's sort of like his grand symbolic gesture to the gods.
Yep.
Which it is worth noting that in ancient Egypt, the sacred scarab was the dung beetle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool. He punches through the ground and finds his dear friend Logos, who he has not met to this point. How did Logos know he was going to be there, Flonzo? Because Rama Tut told him so. And how did Rama Tut know? Because he's from the future.
And everyone's read their history sphere on Apocalypse.
Apocalypse, they knew he would do that.
He's the most dangerous Marvel villain of them all.
So at this point, Logos he's effectively sneaking in Sabanur into the City of the Kings. And the way he's done it is he has him kind of bandaged up so people can't recognize him. And he's sneaking him in under the guise of a slave. And so as Logos is coming into town, he's coming into his study and he sees Ozymandias in there. And he's questioning him, saying, hey, why are you in here? He has a little bit of like a back and forth with him. They get into a little bit of a power struggle, basically saying Rama Tut would have your head if he knew you were looking over my scrolls. Ozymandias fires back, saying Rama Tut needs me. Not only is my sister going to give birth to his heir, I'm the military might of the current civilization. And then he takes his leave. And it's at that point that Logos is kind of talking out loud and basically shit talking Ozymandias, and Sabanur screams out Ozymandias, and he jumps out and he basically wants to kill him. And then what happens at this point, Flonzo?
One thing is, and I'm just throwing in all the history background on this stuff, and Sabanur does have an iron dagger at this time, which there was some iron around.
Oh, yeah, there was like little iron craft at that time.
Yeah, and he was kind of impressed with, oh, your people have iron daggers, which would have been impressive at that time. The only iron actually, they weren't smelting iron here. They were only getting iron from meteors. Meteors.
Ah, meters, not feet.
We
the
only
metric
sell it
system.
by the meter.
Cool.
But yeah, then we kind of get to the end. And actually, this is where I do think this was probably a well-written scene, but I don't think it came out as well in the artwork. Is you have this scene where you have the two levels.
Two levels. In reference to what, Flonzo?
Yeah, on the last page, we have this kind of, what could be a kind of brilliant take where we have the two levels, where we have Neferi on the top layer of this building and Sabanur underneath, and kind of using the different stories as a sort of paneling, which could work really well, but just the way the art came together, you don't see it as much as those multiple levels as I think you could.
Yeah.
One thing I did think was kind of neat is she overhears him talking about, how he's coming after Rama Tut. He feels her tears as she's crying about this unwanted marriage. And he sees her and he's like, so much beauty and ugliness all in one place. 'Tis truly a place of wonder. It shall be mine. Yeah, so I did like that moment at the end there.
Yeah, there's a piece there where he kind of has this like naive wonder about the world.
Yeah.
That he's existed in for the last 25 years.
But you got to think, I mean, there is a big difference between that nomadic lifestyle and living in the cities in this period, especially.
For sure. Yeah. Cool. So that's issue number 2.
Yeah.
Issue number 3, Dark Annunciation. Enunciate it darkly, Flonzo, say it.
Dark Annunciation.
Okay, but now say the Rise of Apocalypse. Apocalypse. That's against his dark.
It's the apocalypse. Everyone's getting cut from the parks department.
That's as dark as it gets.
It really is.
Okay, we are back in it with Sabanur, Rama Tut, Ozymandias. The whole crew is here, and we find our dearest, darkest enunciated.
Sabanur.
As a slave. What's happening here, Flonzo? What do we got going on?
Well, so basically Logos is disguised Apocalypse and Sabanur, as he's known at this time, as a slave. And he's working building these pyramids, which we see 3 pyramids. So the implication, I think, is that these are supposed to be the Great Pyramids of Giza, which were built about 500 years after this.
Yep. And then we also see, I mean, obviously the Sphinx. So I think the insinuation is that Rama Tut's Sphinx is our real world Sphinx.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so we see Ozymandias. That's Ozymandias, right? That's whipping Ensabanur.
He is.
Yeah.
Apparently, after he became a general, now he came back alive from that thing, and now he's just like the slave master.
Yeah. He's like the site foreman.
Yeah, that's it.
Do people not realize that's Ensabanur?
They don't know because he's got, he's kind of wrapped up.
I mean, just the gray skin exposed, I guess, would be the main question.
Yeah, I would.
They're like, he's just not sun exposed like the others. So I mean, in similar fashion to previous scenes, he gets kicked off the pyramid, and falls seemingly to his death. I mean, he hits the ground and it shatters like glass.
Yeah, and he's actually brought back by the statue is a statue of Horus. Yeah, it's a statue of Horus, but they say it's Osiris.
Right.
Which, and that's throughout this. It's also the way that Ozymandias's Ozymandias's men are all dressed the same way, and they also say that that's like Osiris.
Right.
It's Horus. That's what Horus looks like.
Yeah.
In fact, Khonshu actually looks like that sometimes.
I was going to say, we'll talk about this in the next episode. Khonshu's in the background doing Khonshu things and at the same time.
Oh, yeah. And actually, so Ensabanur is brought back by Osiris with the statue that looks like Horus.
I also love how ambivalent she is in this scene. So I'll just kind of read these panels. So Ensabanur falls to the ground, either knocked out or dead. But in a way, this is almost like part 2 of your power developing, right? Mm-hmm. So the first one is he dies in the cave and is brought back with the Eye of Aegis.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's really what brings him back. I think it is his mutant
powers.
Yeah.
So he has this mutant awakening. So part 2 is he is brought back by Horus. So she says, En Saba Nur, you were not meant to be a slave to other men. Take this power in you and choose to bring light or darkness. I love that she just gives him this choice. It's kind of you can decide. Figure it out.
And we actually should specify, while they call the statue Osiris, the statue is Horus, but it's Isis who comes out of this. Cause,
That's right, because he responds to her and says Isis.
Yeah, and it was, we forgot to mention at the end of last issue, Nefri does say a prayer to Isis to protect Ensabanur.
Yeah. So then Ensabanur, for lack of a better way to describe it, goes full Super Saiyan, shoots up to the sky. He starts radiating light. Ozymandias screams, "Get him, kill him." And the army kind of runs after him. He kind of shoots off. His previous tribe goes and grabs him. It's at this point it cuts to quote unquote hours later, and there is an interesting new group of folks on the scene. Flonzo, who shows up at Rama Tut's temple at this point.
So that would be the Fantastic Four.
Fucking random.
Yeah, especially in this context. So this is a scene that comes from Fantastic Four number 19. You're more likely to know who the Fantastic Four are than any of these other characters we've mentioned, but, they're 4 kind of adventure superheroes from our time period. They had traveled back in time during this time period. And actually, within the next 48 hours, there are going to be a lot of superheroes in this area, as we'll get into in our next episode. But just so you know, not only are the Fantastic Four here right now,
the West Coast Avengers are going to show up.
Yeah, they're watching this very scene unfolding on a monitor elsewhere. Doctor Strange is astral projecting in the room. Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to note, too, Flonzo, was there a different artist on this particular issue? Because it just looks like the inking and the penciling, or the inking and the coloring, it just looks different. Almost looks like Frank Miller-esque. It has a different vibe to it. It's a little bit cleaner, a little bit crisper. Not that Frank Miller was clean or crisp, but
comparatively.
Yeah, it just looks a little different. I like it more compared to some of those previous issues, but I do like the way that they made the Fantastic Four look like a little gritty, a little chunky. It's cool. So not to pull too far back behind the curtain as to next episode, but I think it's important to note why the Fantastic Four is there. And they are there. They have chosen to time travel because Reed and Sue Storm were at a museum. And this is in issue, what, 39?
19.
Issue 19. They were at a museum where they were able to ascertain that there is a cure for blindness. And they were
this nebulous period of history where information's missing.
And they were able to determine that if they traveled back in time, they could find this particular radiated flower in ancient Egypt to help cure Ben Grimm's girlfriend's blindness.
And they were also able to discern based on a hieroglyph that, oh, it was radiation that
did it. Yeah. Which consequently was also the same irradiated flower that cured Rama Tut's blindness when he crash landed and blind fired on all the people that were trying to help him. It's a comedy of errors. It's very delightful, the next couple of episodes. Okay, all that wackiness aside, Logos pops back in, is quickly dismissed by Rama Tut. You have Rama Tut kind of depowering the Fantastic Four at this point. So what? Talk us through a little bit about what's happening here, Flonzo.
Well, as you mentioned, Logos got dismissed by Rama Tut and immediately was arrested by Ozymandias. While meanwhile, Rama Tut's using his magic gun to enslave the Fantastic Four.
And he knows who they are.
He totally knows who they
are. A known quantity.
Yeah. So he enslaves them. He decides that Susan Storm, the Invisible Woman from the Fantastic Four, is going to be his wife. And so Nefri is out. Invisible Woman, Susan Storm is in.
Okay. So Nefri at this point kind of slinks off and finds herself in the bed of Rama Tut. I'm sorry, not Rama Tut. I'm getting names confused. And Sabanur. They're having kind of a romantic exchange. And then all of a sudden, what is this, like a talisman or is it like a Emerald of Osiris is talking to Sabanur and basically telling him, like, avoid this temptation.
Yeah, this will make you weak. You've got to be strong. So I guess Osiris also, who again looks like Horus in this, who is Osiris's son, I don't think I mentioned earlier. Yeah, he says, don't be tempted by weakness, survival of the fittest, be strong.
Yep. And so Nefri basically says, okay, cool, boundaries, love them, boundaries are sexy. Take me to the Sphinx, and Sabanur says, now. Cut back to Rama Tut. He's got this wild headdress.
And also a wild method of being on his throne. Like, it's this super heavy throne that's just being held up by all these slaves for no apparent reason. He's not going anywhere.
I didn't even notice that. That's crazy. He also looks like the Dilophosaur from Jurassic Park, which I think is fun.
Also fun how we just assume they all look that way now. Just throwing that out there about Dilophosaurs.
Yeah.
The entire point in the book is we don't know what they look like. They could have had frills and spit acid, and yet that's what we assume they are now.
Shame on me.
No, not at all. It's just an interesting note about Dilophosaurs, which is I'm sure why you clicked on this video about the rise of Apocalypse.
Talk to me a little bit about this scene, Flonzo, because I will be completely frank with you and the listeners. I have forgotten 90% of what's happening in this particular moment.
It seems like a lot of the slaves, after seeing that resurrection of Sabanur, started to kind of become inspired. And so out of fear of the slaves hiding him, they've just executed all the slaves.
Okay.
Which does not seem very efficient when you're trying to get other things done. But yeah, they've essentially, just massacred all of the slaves. Part of the reason they did that is because they are afraid there might be some kind of an uprising happening, which I think explains, a lot of the tensions we'll see in some of the other comics we talk about next episode. Yeah, so Logos starts being questioned about why did you bring this guy here? Like, we know that's... And like you were mentioning, I mean, he does have gray skin. He's this big guy. He kind of stands out. So they start to question him like, so why'd you bring this guy here?
Yeah, regular Frankenstein. Okay. I also love this image of Logos where it just looks like this, like, oh, me? Oops. Like, I wish there was video to just show this particular image. It's just the most, like, just dainty, silly image. I love it. Cut to Ensabanur, very sneakily and silently infiltrating the Sphinx. I just love the imagery here where it's also Ensabanur with, like, a proto X-Men outfit where he just has, like, an X on him.
It actually kind of reminds me of Chambers' outfit, if
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah, definitely. In this process, they see Logos crucified.
Yeah, and in this very, like, just for those of you not really aware how crucifixion works, like, there's the nails through method, and then there's just, if you hang there, you can't breathe. And it's also got, like, a thing around his neck, so it looks like a super deadly form of crucifixion they're doing, like a very torturous, slow death.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't kill him.
Yeah. Yep. Ozymandias is there, and he's like, hey, you just stepped into the Viper's nest. We got you. I mean, super sad, right? He then continues to tie up, it's not necessarily crucifixion at this point, but tie up his sister Nefri as well. And then he has Ensabanur with him. And so what's going on at this point, Flonzo? Because he has the slaves, he has Ensabanur, and then there's this scene where it has like this, like, almost like Jesus level thing happening.
Yeah,
with
he's
Apocalypse.
got that classic, like, medieval halo effect going on around him. And basically, he asks Ensabanur to be his adopted son. And then he asks him to bow before him, and that's where he just absolutely refuses to do that. And then Rama Tut also says, Nefri, she's never going to love you. And also goes as far as killing Logos. So he really,
He goes full villain.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, takes away any of the hope that Ensabanur might have had.
Right. And have you noticed, like, the more he kind of, like, develops his power, he starts losing his hair?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Like, check that out real quick. I'm going to hand this back to Flonzo. His hair starts, like, thinning in a way, and what you'll see in the final issue is he has no hair.
I didn't notice that. That's a really good catch.
Yeah, not that that's, I think, anything that's super fun to listen to, but
yeah, I mean, we'll have some images up.
It's a little stringy.
Yeah.
It's stressful being Apocalypse.
So, I mean, really, that is why I'm losing my hair as I get older. My mutant powers are just, manifesting in middle age.
That's what it is. Yeah, you're a late bloomer, as they say.
So, yeah, Rama Tut pulls out his multi-purpose gun and shoots Ensabanur, but unlike with the Fantastic Four, he seems to be able to escape at the start of the next issue.
Yep. We are on issue 4, Ageless Fury of the Rise of Apocalypse. This is the 4th and last issue of this series.
The one where Apocalypse actually rises.
Where he finally rises. I am in Saba nervous to see what happens.
Oh.
Hey. So the origin of Apocalypse concludes here, as the issue indicates. This was January 1997, Y2K looming in the distance. The issue starts with the sun rising over the pyramids. You can see the Sphinx in the background as well. And we see Rama Tut and Ozymandias discussing Ensabanur. He is out there. Flonzo, how much time has passed between last issue and this one? I was actually trying to reference this earlier and I wasn't able to see, but it looks like some time has passed.
Yeah, I would say actually no more than a day, just based on what we know about what the other superheroes, the Fantastic Four and the like, are doing during this time. So
okay. Because Rama Tut mentions, he says, Ensabanur's out there, his genetic power's growing. Ozymandias says he's seemingly disappeared. What we find, though, is there is a what looks like a dungeon where Nefri is chained up. There's a bunch of, looks like mummies, or maybe just corpses that are loosely wrapped in cloth.
Yeah, the victims who died in that pit before.
Yeah, possibly. And Ozymandias is down there. So what is going on here? Because there is this exchange between Ozymandias and his sister. What are they talking about, Flons?
She's tied up there as like a lure for Ensabanur. At least that's what I gathered from this.
Okay. So trying to lure him out, get him to come and show his big mutated self.
And he also says that he's not sure if, something like that, to kind of use his mentality as someone who sees him as not human could have feelings for someone like Nefri.
Okay. And so what happens is Nefri starts I mean, a giant snake pops out.
Yeah, no, that is a scene that I think there's some miscommunications between the artist and the writer, or like the writer ran out of room or the letter ran out of room. Because they're still having their conversation when they're like looking in terror at this snake that's coming. And then, yeah, so he does come to rescue her. He's fighting off these snakes. And then there's just a giant snake. And there's sort of no lead up, even though there's a panel that suggests there would be a lead up.
Yeah. So they're talking small snakes, massive snake. I mean, huge, like room filled. And then Ensabaner's getting crushed by the giant snake. And then he rips the snake in part because he is in himself growing in strength.
Yeah, and feeling like he needs to become more of a monster. He has to become that stronger beast.
Yep. And then he gets speared through the shoulder. And again, I think where this comic is so like illegible at times, it's like he falls over and then it's like the spear's not there again, but then it is. And then all of a sudden, the king's like guard is down there with him. They're yelling, he has fallen. And then he kind of like hulks up and starts attacking these guys. And Nefri screams, Apocalypse. Why does she call him Apocalypse? Well, I'll tell you why. Because he screams,
you think you'll crush me because of the blood in your veins? The Nile will run red with that blood. Only the strong will survive my coming. I am the end of all that is. I am the apocalypse. Tell the Pharaoh I come. I bring his death. I bring him my legacy.
He is on a path of vengeance at this point.
Yeah, he's kind of, at this point, becoming more and more of a monster to defeat these monsters.
Yeah. And I love the way that you phrase that, because he's pretty, like, unrecognizable to her. She's like, get away from me. And you can see kind of, like, the pain in his face to the point where Ozymandias is, like, protecting her, which is interesting in and of itself. Like, I obviously, like, a bit of, like, emotional manipulation against him.
Yeah.
Again, more of this kind of like back and forth. And then you get this like 2-page scene where Apocalypse just turns into a giant torso. Torso, shoulders, and arms. And like just destroys the room around him.
And when Nefri runs to her brother, like, that is the last hope he has, right? Like, anyone who ever cared about him is dead at this point.
Mm-hmm.
This hope that she might love him, might have feelings for him, was all he had keeping him going. And that's the last shred of humanity abandoning him.
Yep. And Ozymandias is pretty smug with himself. So then he sneaks over to the Sphinx. And then what's happening at this scene, Fonzo? Because he runs into... It looks like he sees the Human Torch briefly. So what's going on here?
That's another reference to that Fantastic Four number 19, where... sort of Rama Tut had run into the Sphinx and is being chased by the Fantastic Four going in there.
Yeah.
Everyone's in the Sphinx right now.
And it's at this point that Ozymandias runs into Apocalypse, and Apocalypse blasts him with all the information and knowledge of basically ancient Egypt all the way to 3,000 years AD, from the far future where Rama Tut first traveled back to ancient Egypt.
Exactly. He gives that to him in an instant. And even though it looks like with the artwork here that he's been killed, around this same time, the X-Men had fought Ozymandias in modern times, and it's kind of established that Ozymandias does go on to become Apocalypse's scribe. And he's even there when Apocalypse fights Dracula.
Nice.
Which, yeah, comment down below if you want us to cover that, because I totally want to cover that.
I would love to cover that. So then it cuts to this scene that, like, it plays out several times where Rama Tut jumps into, like, his escape pod and blasts off from the Sphinx. this plays out several times. We see it here. We're going to see it Fantastic Four and a couple other different places. And then people are just screaming omens, 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 which I thought was very funny. And the Fantastic Four is like, cool, we got our powers back. In Fantastic Four 19, they also got the radiated flower that's going to cure blindness. And then the Sphinx explodes. Was it a booby trap? Was it Apocalypse? What was your read on that, Flonzo?
So, just with this alone, it seems like it's Apocalypse. Having read other issues that are set with many of the other superheroes who are running around this Sphinx at the exact same moment, it also seems like there's some sort of fail-safe device that Rama Tut has that also self-destructs a bunch of the technology.
Yeah.
So, a combination of self-destruct stuff from Rama Tut and Apocalypse just tearing everything apart.
Exactly. This is almost like a reintroduction at this point, right? Of Insabanur is now Apocalypse. He kind of steps out from the debris. You can see the quote-unquote slaves bowing to him. He's vowing to basically step into this role of leader now, and then it cuts to 50 years later. He finds Nefri. She's like, my gosh, you haven't aged. He's basically like, I'm the Eternal Dynasty. I've never forgotten. I am now Apocalypse. And that's where this story ends.
Yeah.
I hated it. I hated every minute of it.
You know, I didn't like it when I first read it. Like, I read issues 2 and 4. I randomly got at Alex D's, a local comic shop that's no longer in business.
Oh, classic shout out, Flonzo. Love that.
Yeah. Solid memories in that place. But yeah, they had issues 2 and 4 there. I bought those and didn't get 1 and 3 till years later.
Yeah.
And reading it all together, I know the first time I read through, I sort of had a similar reaction to you where it was confusing. I had no idea what was going on. Rereading it for this and kind of taking notes and seeing it as more of like a ancient Egypt story than an X-Men story, I enjoyed it more on this reread, but I agree, like the art, and I can't put my finger on it because like I said, like Aeon Flux, I enjoy that. I do think I enjoy the motion of it a lot. There are stylistic choices that work there that don't work here for this story.
Right. It feels like it tries to shoehorn way too many concepts into like an already existing kind of like story arc, which we'll talk about next episode. That's already pretty bloated, but in a fun way. And I think the other piece of it that I didn't like is like, it's very self-serious in a way that doesn't work for me. Like, the drama doesn't land, the revenge, like it's all very superficially angry.
I feel like it's very much a product of that time of the 90s and aimed at sort of like a younger teen kind of.
Yeah, you had used like a phrase earlier when we were talking this morning. You had said something like, this is like the perfect comic for like that angry 13-year-old boy.
Oh, 100%. And I think when you're 13, you think that this is dramatic and deep.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's about the age, I guess, when I read issues 2 and 4, and I found it confusing, but I was also reading issues 2 and 4 of the...
Which are probably the worst ones.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I do think, you know, when you're young, you just think anything that's dark and brooding is deep, and then you kind of get older and you respect the nuances a lot more, I think.
Right. I think it doesn't tell you anything about Apocalypse either.
Yeah.
Like, it gives you a history superficially, right? Like, it tells you that he was a baby that was found and raised in adversity, and that baby turned into Apocalypse. That's kind of it.
Yeah, you kind of get where that survival of the fittest mentality comes from.
Right. And it's wrapped in this foil of like, oh, and there was all these other things happening at the same time that I think is tangential to his origin story. He was just kind of shoehorned into another story.
Yeah.
You know?
It's almost more of the battle between like Logos and Ozymandias.
Right. Which was also not a good story.
No, like I said, it made me realize there was a cliche because it was so front and center.
Yeah. Do you feel like you learned anything new about Apocalypse from reading this?
No. And that said, I read what happened in this story before I read this story, so
yeah,
there is that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't say I learned anything. I learned the most from researching for this episode. This is the first episode I created a source list for, and there's going to be quite a bit of sources if you look down in the comment section below.
Yeah.
Or in the video description, I should say. But so I got a lot out of that. I learned a lot about ancient Egypt. This is an interesting time period of when we have some knowledge, but not a ton of knowledge about what was going on in ancient Egypt. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And not to be like too hypercritical, like I don't write comics. I don't draw comics.
No, and we're both being kind of critical of this artwork. I could not draw this, and I could not draw this on the type of time schedule that...
For sure. And there was certainly a style at the time, right? Like, I think we saw this type of thing in, like, Spawn and some of the more, like, I guess, like, mature type comics where there was, like, it was, like, a bit more of, like, an edgier look. So, like...
Yeah, and I feel
point
like
in time, for sure.
I feel like this would work well with something like Spawn. I almost like... Actually, I feel like if this was a Sam and Twitch comic, which is super...
Dude, that's
specific,
a great point.
But, like, I feel like it would work really well, but...
Yeah. In 2025, it certainly did not land for me.
Yeah. Like I said, I enjoyed it more on the second reading, but I feel like your takeaway reminds me exactly of how I felt. And I even was probably 19 when I read, all 4 issues the first time, and it's still, even when I was closer to sort of the age that would find this appealing, it didn't do it for me.
Right on. So this is a facet of this story, right? So there were other sides to what happened in ancient Egypt around this time. So Flonzo, give us a quick view of what we're talking about next time.
So on the next episode, as we alluded to, the Fantastic Four were around this time, as were the West Coast Avengers, as was Doctor Strange. In fact, it might be said that Rama Tut only lost because there was so much crazy stuff happening to him in this 48-hour period.
Was Moon Knight there?
Eventually. We've got all sorts of goodies for you next episode. Also, as a little prelude to what's happening in a couple episodes, let's fast forward about 1,000 years or so to a time where you see an alien invasion in this very desert, and you see Apocalypse fighting alongside Imhotep, who fought with a shield, and that shield was so important to him that he eventually formed a group called the Brotherhood of the Shield, which became so important that thousands of years later, there was a organization that felt like they needed to call themselves S.H.I.E.L.D. so much they called themselves the Supreme Headquarters International Espionage and Law Enforcement Division.
Nice. Bunch of cops.
So, enjoy the next couple episodes, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you.
It's